Three, two. Hello, everyone. Good morning. It is Monday. It is the start of the week. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are going to start where we left off earlier in this journey. This is the third or fourth, maybe the fourth out of 8 live broadcasts looking at the soul traits that are associated with awe. Today is awe and patience, the strength to get through difficult times. And I want to know, do you agree with this? Do you feel like you are enough? Rabbi Alan Liu, in his book This Is Real and You Are Totally Unprepared, teaches that stopping during the days of awe and feeling like and looking in the mirror is one of the scariest things that we can do. Because there are so many things we do where, I really don't feel like I'm enough. At least that's something that I struggle with. And when we start to look at within and we start to look at everything that happened in the last year, it can turn into kind of a negative thing if we let it. And I think some people are afraid to look back without realizing just how incredibly liberating that it can be to participate in this kind of self-reflective activity. Some of us have had really tough years, whether it is the political environment, whether it has to do with, maybe we are an immigrant family or we have friends who are immigrants and we're sort of worried about the impact of the political environment, or we're worried about our healthcare coverage, or maybe we're angry at certain communities or angry about things that have taken place. Or maybe there have been real setbacks in our life, setbacks in our career, setbacks in our health, setbacks in our family. And I was speaking with someone who was sharing with me in private some of the things that were going on, and she said, I just feel defeated and broken. And my heart just opened because I have felt that way at times in my life, where it just seems like everything is going wrong and horrible and unfair things have happened, and we can just feel really, really down. And when we're in that space, I want to bring us back to a teaching that we've looked at a couple of times from Rabbi Nosson Sivi Finkel, who is the author of Novar Darak. I believe he was one of the disciples of Rabbi Israel Salanter. And I'm going to read what he said. It was, and I'm going to look at my little teleprompter. Every pathway for leading one's life, whether the mundane or the spiritual, whether communal or individual, is guided by and predicated on the measure of one's assessment of his or her self-worth. So it's the measure of the assessment of our self-worth. And it is so easy when we've had setbacks in life to really internalize that and to take it personally and to think that this is an issue of our self-worth. Now, on the flip side, and the opportunity we have during these days of awe when we're looking within, is to be reminded that we also are created in the divine image, that we all have, each and every one of us, we have a divine spark, and it's occluded by our baggage. And when we have these setbacks in life, that's more baggage. That's more baggage which has been put in the way. Which those are hurts that sit on the heart and make it difficult to move forward. So we then in our next session we looked at this idea that each of us has just a small part to play in the universe. Like, it seems like everything depends on us. I've been in that job where I felt like if I don't do A, B, and C, it's not going to get done and it's going to be this big disaster. So I have to put all this time into working. Or, I had this horrible setback and this is, this is really directed at me. Oh, there's mice in my house. It's somehow my fault. It's like, well, no, it's not your fault. It's mice. They like to come in out of the hot or out of the cold. They just do that. It's not personal. It's something we have to deal with. Oh, my wife left me. Oh, my husband is having an affair. Oh, my kids or my teenagers are staying out all night, or they're talking back to me. And yeah, we have a part to play in bringing that to, how we show up, how we react to that. We have a part to play, but it doesn't mean it's personal. It doesn't mean that it's our fault. And there's a really big difference in understanding that. Because again, it comes back to this issue of our self-worth. If we take everything personally, if we think it all has to do with us, then it's so much harder for us to show up and deal with it. Then our next section, we talked about the soul trait of trust, of trusting in the divine. And this is a real challenge, especially for many people in America, for people in the American Mussar community, because we're not necessarily sure about the divinity. I don't know if I'm on board with a divinity who has a plan for everything and has a hand in the universe, either directly or indirectly. And it's a challenge because we're expected to believe two different things simultaneously. One, that there's this plan, and two, I have absolute free will, and I get to choose how I'm going to show up. And the way to kind of resolve these differences is to remember that, to just look at the reality of your own life. Think about how many times you worried about something which never even remotely took place. And as the great sage Mark Twain said, there were so many things I worried about in life, and some of the worst things I experienced actually happened. Well, what he was saying was that some of the worst experiences he had were worrying about things that never happened. And that amount of suffering that we can take on ourselves, suffering based purely on worry about something that might happen, and then it never does. So if we can trust in the divine, or trust in the universe, or just trust ourselves that we can handle things, it puts us in a much stronger position to show up in life. And the phrase that we learned, remember our friend the camel, trust in God but tie your camel. It's like, yeah, we're going to trust that things are going to work out, but we're not just going to let the camel be untethered, because the camel's going to run away. I'm going to trust that things are going to work out, but that doesn't mean I go to a bad neighborhood and leave my brand new bike unlocked. We have to do our part. And so that brings us to patience. That's what we're working on right now. The soul trait of patience. How does, if my friend Aaron, I think, has put the spectrum of patience in the notes for this live, and you'll notice that if we have too little patience, what happens? We get angry and frustrated. But if we have too much patience, then we can be staying in a bad job, we can be staying in a bad relationship, we cannot be taking action. So given the struggles that so many of us are going through, how is it that patience can give us strength to kind of get through these difficult times? Well, let me put it to you this way. The Hebrew word for strength is savlanut, and the root of that word is saval, and that's like the person that carries the luggage in Israel. He's like the luggage carrier. Patience is about bearing a burden. It says in the Torah that God delivered and Moses helped deliver the Israelites from bearing the burden of slavery. So in a sense, patience is a gift from the universe, or a gift from the divine. It's our last refuge when we can't take any other action, when we are absolutely locked up in traffic, there is an accident, we are not moving anywhere, we are going to be late for our meeting, we're going to be late from picking up our kids at daycare, which means we're going to be paying a fee because they charge us if they have to keep somebody there late. There's nothing we can do. All we can do is to be patient. Now I want to share with you a reading from this book, Heshbon HaNefesh. So now we're back to the backwards. We're looking backwards. This was a 19th century book written by Menachem Mendel Levin. He lived in the Ukraine, and it's 13 soul traits. Now, Heshbon HaNefesh, you might have heard that. Like if you go to services, if you're going on Yom Kippur, you might see that phrase. It means accounting of the soul. It's what we do during these days of Oz. We look within and we give an accounting and we say, okay, well, how am I doing? Where do I need to do some work on myself? Well, in Mussar, we do that every day. And so Heshbon HaNefesh is a very, very influential book in the Mussar community because it's based upon it's actually, believe it or not, it's based on the Ben Franklin method of looking at 13 virtues in your life. Now, Rabbi Levin did not credit Ben Franklin directly, but in some of his private letters, we know that he read his work, and it is so similar to Franklin's 13 Virtues method. Well, why didn't he do this? Probably because he was afraid that the Jewish big machers would reject a method that came from somebody who wasn't Jewish. Yeah, they did that then too. We do that today. It's unfortunate, but it's a reality. So he has 13 different soul traits, and one of them is patience. And so I want to read with you a section, and we're going to take a look at this. So it's on his section on patience. I'm just going to read one section. I want to just look. I want to actually read you two things. So he has a little recitation phrase, which is when something bad happens to you and you did not have the power to avoid it, do not aggravate the situation more through wasted grief. So I love that idea because it's, yeah, we're stuck in traffic. We can't move. We're going to miss something important. There's going to be a consequence. Are we going to throw gas on the fire with extra suffering? Or are we going to just try to be patient and try to deal with it? Well, that's great in theory, Greg. It's like, yeah, I should be patient, but I'm freaking pissed off. Okay, how am I supposed to learn this patience? Well, learning is exactly how you do it. So let's look at this other passage, which I like. Woe to the pampered man who has never been trained to be patient. There's a couple key phrases there. The pampered man or the pampered person who's never trained to be patient. So right away, okay, a little bit of judgment, pampered person, pampered man, pampered woman, but it's also this idea that we haven't been trained to be patient. It's not like some of us maybe rolled out of bed and we're just very easygoing about life. I'm not that person. I am high energy. I want to get stuff done. I don't like having to wait naturally, but growth mindset, we can learn, right? Mussar is the ultimate growth mindset practice. We can learn to do this stuff. So let me continue. Either today or in the future, he is destined to sip from the cup of affliction, either as a personal trial or as a means of atonement, which is meant to befall people in the world. As the verse states, man is born to toil. So what does that mean? Okay. The man is born to toil. This saying is, we're going to have, stuff's going to happen. At some point in your life, you're going to struggle. And maybe if you're really lucky and you've had a good family and you haven't had to struggle financially and you've gotten into good schools and just nothing bad has happened to you, at some point something is going to happen. You're living in Florida and boom, a hurricane hits and you don't have power for a couple of months. You're in Houston and your city has gotten flooded. Your life has been going fine. You've done everything right. boom, hurricane hits, and maybe it's a metaphorical hurricane. Maybe it's a layoff at your job. Maybe it's something unexpected in your marriage. Maybe your child has gotten a horrible disease. I mean, this is part of life. That's what the scripture was telling us, is that we were born to have to do some work in order to have to deal with this, okay? So the pamper man feels his affliction and pain more intensely than others. Moreover, he is beset with vain regret, like those unfortunate boors who are full of meaningless remorse, making statements like, had I only not entered that business, this would never have occurred. Had I only stayed on that place for another hour, I would not have ended up here. Yeah, if I'd taken the exit and gone on the side streets, I wouldn't be stuck in traffic. Well, it's true, but it's not very helpful. And again, that language, for some people, they find it a little bit judgmental and harsh. But the point is that if we don't take the time to learn patience, that's going to be us. That's where we're going to be stuck. I will say, as a little bit of a success story, I have learned to become more patient through Mussar. It has helped me, and it's actually a little bit of a, driving in traffic is a little bit of a canary in a coal mine for me. Because when all of a sudden I start yelling at the other cars, that's my signal. It's like, hey Greg, you're taking on too much in your life. You are starting to kind of lose your cool with other drivers. It's not helping you, it's not helping them, it's not helping anybody. So the question is, how do we go about becoming more patient? Well, one thing is I want to point out the connection between patience and humility, and then also to awe, because we are talking about awe in all of these things. So many times when we're impatient, it's because we feel like somebody else is in our way. It's like, hey, I want to get there. I have someplace to be, me, and these people are literally in my way. They are standing in front of me in the checkout line. And when we do that, we are elevating our own importance. We're saying, hey, I am more important than these other people. I should not have to wait in this big line. Well, guess what? That's not the way on a spiritual level things were set up. Everybody has one soul. We all are equal in a spiritual sense. And maybe some people have more money. Maybe someone has a higher level job and has more responsibility at work. But when it comes to going to the DMV, everybody's taking a number. When it comes to going to the grocery store, you get what you get. And so remembering that we're not so important, remembering that we have a small place to play in this universe, and remembering that they all have divine sparks is a way of growing our patience. So what are some practices? What are some real Mussar practices that we can take? Well, I'm going to take a peek at my book. Hope you have it, Spiritual Practice of Good Actions. I wrote the book to make Mussar very accessible. There's no Hebrew terms. There are alternatives to the divinity. I hope you will go check it out if you don't have it. And at the end of every chapter, I have some suggestions for things to practice. So the first thing we can do is we can focus in on this trust practice. Remind ourselves that to trust the universe, that most things are going to work out. Okay, yeah, I'm going to be late for this meeting. It's really not going to matter. It's really going to be okay. You're not going to lose the sale because of traffic. You're not going to lose your job because of traffic. You know, somebody might say something, you'll apologize, you'll call in on your phone. It'll be okay. So just reminding yourself that most things work out, things are going to be okay. That's a way to practice traffic. And what is that? In reality, it's another way of saying, I am enough. When we're afraid of the consequence of being late, It's really a way of saying, I'm not enough. I'm not going to be able to handle this situation. Therefore, I'm going to become impatient. But when we say, you know what, I am enough. I am enough to sit here in traffic and know that I'm going to be okay. All right. Now, one way to practice patience is literally to practice it. To pick a situation when you are going to have to wait. So if you're in the grocery store, pick the longest checkout line. Pick the person has a big button that says, I'm in training, and has the supervisor looking over his or her shoulder telling them what to do. And then when you're in line, just say your little patience mantra, which the one that I like is, this too shall pass, and I have the strength to get by until it does. I have the strength to bear the burden of the situation. And we can take a couple of deep breaths. We can put on our ear pods and listen to music. We can look around or strike up a conversation with some of those other people around us. We can use this as an opportunity to do something else. And this is a little bit of a stretch, but it's not too much of a stretch. And if we practice patience, suddenly when we're in traffic or when our kids are starting to act up or when, our parent is, who's maybe starting to get dementia and is repeating things over and over again, we can be a little bit more patient and we can be a little bit more compassionate because we've practiced it. Remember, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Levin said, "Woe to the pampered man who has never learned to be patient." Something we can learn to do. What else? If you're a meditator, meditate on the image of a patient person. My mother's father, Philip Menschel, my grandpa Phil, as I used to call him, he graduated high school in 1932, heart of the Depression. He could never go to college. He had a career in civil service for the toll system in Connecticut, and he just never was bitter about that. He was always calm and patient, at least he was with me. I was his grandson, so I probably got special treatment. But nonetheless, his patience with me is a model, and sometimes I meditate on his image. And another thing we can do is to look for the divine spark in other people. When people become real people, it's not just 4 bodies in front of me in line, it's 4 souls in front of me. I might strike up a conversation with that. I might find a connection, and it can just transform that whole experience. The whole experience becomes different. It becomes a way to just be in the world and to just be present. And really, again, we can stand in that line and suffer, or we can use it as an opportunity to practice patience. Because really, we started this broadcast talking about some of the hard times in life, okay? It's not about, standing in line. Yeah, that's helpful and that can make your life difference. But what really makes a difference is by practicing patience, we change our soul. We move ourselves along on that spectrum. So then when we're laid off from a job, we have more resilience because we have more patience. One of my students, and I think I share this story in the book, he got laid off from a job and was unemployed for a long time. Then he got another job and lost it again immediately. And he said, patience really helped him because he had no other choice. He was doing his best. He was looking for these jobs. There were some circumstances he couldn't control. And eventually, he ended up in a much better position, which is a much better fit for him. And he's much, much happier with that. But because he was able to practice his patience before the adversity hit, before Hurricane Harvey came in and flooded Texas, for people who are digging out their homes, patience is the only choice they have. Yes, they need to take action, but the reality is that they need patience to get through, those difficult times. And the last thing I want to leave you with is a quote from Rabbi Nachum of Breslov. He said, "Get in the habit of always singing a tune. It will give you new life and send joy into your soul." So, what songs do you like? Sing a song that you like to kind of bring a little joy into your life. If you are standing in line or stuck in traffic, or you're having a hard time being patient, or if you're in the refugee relocation center, music is something that can bring people together. So today, thank you so much for being with us on our day 4 of our Days of Awe. We've kind of reviewed how some of the different soul traits like humility and trust can help us remember to say that I am enough. This time of year when we're looking within, that's what we'd like to come out with, isn't it? Wouldn't it be great if we could, no matter how crappy we're feeling before the high holidays, if we came out of the high holidays saying, I am enough. And patience is one of the tools that we can do to use that. You are heartily invited to take advantage of the special Facebook offer we have, which you can get a copy of my book. Here is backwards, and if I turn it around, it's still backwards. But Spiritual Practice of Good Actions, there's a set of mantra cards to go with them, and there's a 13-week autoresponder, one soul trait a week, which you can all get for a very, very attractive price. And if that's not the right thing for you, I would love to hear from you. Please just message me on this page. I set up a time to talk, and for absolutely free, we can have a time to talk, and I can help you deal with the particular situation that you're dealing with. For now, have a wonderful day.